and Johnson Road. The area of the tract is 22.025 acres. It is zoned L2 mixed use commercial use overlay zone. And this zoning permits various commercial uses, including retail, office, restaurants, self-storage, supermarket, and a number of others. This application proposes a minor subdivision to adjust the existing lot line between the two lots to accommodate the proposed building configuration. And we are seeking preliminary site plan approval for the entire tract. Final site plan approval for phase 1, which is the 225 Littleton Road office, otherwise known as Building A, on our plans, with a number of variances and design waivers. We will coordinate with the tax assessor on the exact lot numbers as to what they are. We've used 45.02 and 45.03, and they're just placeholders until we confirm. The proposal is to demolish the existing 1625 Route 10 building, which exceeds 100,000 square feet. That can't occur until the 225 building is reconstructed, so the employees that are now in the 1625 building can move to the 225 building, and the first floor can be leased for a variety of commercial uses. And then it will also involve the construction of 7 additional commercial buildings with reconfigured access, circulation, and parking to serve the entire marketplace. The existing shared access with Stop and Shop out to Littleton Road will be maintained. A new access will be provided to Route 10, subject to DOT approval. And the 2 Johnson Road driveways will be relocated to some degree and realigned and integrated into the overall development. There will, of course, be cross easements between the 2 lots for access, circulation, parking, and utilities, and we request that the preparation of these easement documents be done as a condition of the preliminary approval. We also seek the ability to begin the reconstruction of Building A, which is the 225 building, prior to receiving DOT approval for the new Route 10 access. The new Route 10 access will not be constructed in phase 1 because it conflicts with the existing 1625 building. And unfortunately, DOT is not one of those state agencies that knows how to move quickly. We have filed, we have been deemed complete. I expect in about 3 months, I'm gonna get my first round of comments. And I expect that the ultimate approval from DOT for that access point will take about 18 months. Don't throw anything at me.
He's looking at you.
I know. It is and I'll talk about it again later. The access application that we have is what the DOT calls a major access with planning, which required the preparation of that voluminous traffic study that was submitted. So it is a long process with the department. Our plans indicate that we are requesting 3 variances, which include parking, steep slope disturbance, and for an interior road setback of 1 foot where 5 feet is required. Based upon Mr. Hall's review, there was an additional variance that was identified about light levels at the property line which is not adjacent to a road. This is the shared driveway that exists. The existing lights on the 225 property illuminate a portion of that roadway today, and as part of our redevelopment, we will continue to illuminate that, but that is in violation of that section of the code. Mr. Hall also identified some small portions of the parking areas where the light levels fall below 0.5 foot candles, and we are going to eliminate those. So we are not going to seek a variance for that. We will have to supply an updated lighting plan, one that is more readable. We had some overlap of multiple, foot candle levels. And the other one is that, the interior sidewalk, the section of the code that Mr. Hall identified says that sidewalks are to be provided along all roadway frontages unless the board finds that the sidewalk system that's provided internal provides equal or better circulation, and I will get into that in my testimony. So obviously, it's the board's determination as to whether that is a variance or is not a variance because it provides equal or better circulation. We note that there's already a sidewalk along Littleton Road and along a portion of the shared driveway with Stop and Shop. We'll be maintaining those sidewalks and that connection to Stop and Shop and Littleton Road so that this proposed development will be able to be integrated with all the buildings within the site, connecting to Stop and Shop, connecting to Littleton Road, and connecting across the Briarcliff Commons. Our plans had noted 2 design waivers, and Mr. Hall identified 6 additional design waivers, but we believe we can revise the plans to eliminate all but 1 additional design waiver, subject, of course, to meeting with the fire department to address the fire lanes. We think that we will be able to comply with the fire chief or the fire marshal's comments on fire lanes and on sufficient fire access to the building. So what I'd like to do now is to put up my first exhibit.
Mark that as A1, please.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and just describe it the way it is.
A1 with today's date. This is entitled Existing Aerial Highline Marketplace, Block 171, lots 45 and 4501. It is dated today.
Does this depict current conditions on the site?
That is correct. This is an existing aerial of the site and the surrounding areas. North is to the right and up a little bit. Route 10 runs from top to bottom on the east side of the sheet. Littleton Road runs from left to right at the top of the page. The Wendy's is across the street, the Briarcliff Commons, and then the Stop and Shop, and then our lot, which is L-shaped, frontage on Littleton, Johnson, and Route 10. Adjacent to this property, to the south behind the 225 building, is a Sunrise Assisted Living. Beyond that is the Coventry Square development, the office building beyond the Sunrise, and then in the south, to the southeast of this site is a Signature Place development. Across the road, the little disturbed area at the very bottom left is the 169 Johnson Road project of Wyker, which is currently in development. And then you have what I always call the Octagon building across the way, across Johnson Road. There is a 290-foot wide New Jersey Power and Light easement that bisects the site from west to east. And within this easement is also a 50-foot wide Columbia Gas easement. You can see there are 2 transmission towers in front of the 225 building, and there is another one at the eastern end adjacent to Johnson Road, and the pair of that is across Johnson Road. But this swath runs right through the middle of the site. We also, I'll get to that well, might as well talk about it now. The red line on this plan is the proposed subdivision line. We are taking this small portion of the site, it's a little hard to see this yellow line here. That is the existing lot line that jogs through the parking lot. We're gonna cut that, remove this portion of 4501 will become part of, the 1625 lot, and the new lot line will create a more rectangular lot for building A. And we're doing that because as part of the overlay zone is that there are required setbacks to internal lot lines. So we need to do that, and you'll see that as they pull out the next exhibit.
So how does that affect the parking?
It doesn't. The parking is all shared among all of the uses. So it'll be cross parking easements among the lot, which exist, I don't know if they exist today, but functionally they occurred today. So, existing,
Can you see it, or no, you wanna move it closer?
you want me?
You can see it?
I have handouts too, if you would like.
Small, you
No,
can't
they're
see
good,
it.
they
Okay.
said so.
And if you have handouts, it would be good for my record. For me.
Andy will.
Just Annie,
Other members may, but this helps me writing a resolution.
all right, this is exhibit A1. There should be more than enough. Which are behind it. I'll get you. All right, I'm gonna mark this one as exhibit A2.
This is an aerial photograph, but it also shows the proposed conditions.
Correct, this is the same aerial photograph that was in exhibit A1, and what we've done is we've inserted the site plan and colorized, the landscape plan from our site plan set. So this is A2 with today's date. It is entitled Site Plan Rendering Full Build Out Highline Marketplace, dated today, prepared by my office.
Eric, I'm sorry, could we get copies of your exhibits also, Liz and myself?
Oh,
I'm
thank you
sorry.
very much.
I thought there were enough to go around.
These are the originals? The first ones?
A1.
All right, thank you.
I apologize. I'm gonna go back to exhibit A1. I think my eyes crossed it. So a portion of lot 4501, which is along Littleton Road, which is this wooded area here, or mostly wooded area, and a portion of, in the power line easement is actually in the R2 zone that is protected by a conservation easement and will remain in its current state and will not be disturbed. There is also an easement on the Stop and Shop parcel that covers this shared access drive that comes out to the traffic signal, and that easement also encompasses the existing Whitehurt Monument sign, which will be replaced, and that's covered in the zoning, allowing us to replace that sign. The tract drains in two general directions. The majority of the site goes out to Route 10, across Route 10 towards the GAF building, and then a portion of the site in the southeast area goes to Johnson Road and into the Malapartis Brook, which comes out of the pond on Signature Place and flows in an easterly direction behind the office buildings along Route 10. The site does contain some steep slopes that are scattered throughout. I'll talk about that more during my variance testimony. Most, if not all, are man-made associated with the prior development of this site and of Johnson Road. As I indicated before, the 1625 building will be demolished once Building A is renovated and upgraded so that Waker can move their operations into that new building. And as this 1625 building contains more than 100,000 square feet, we need the board's approval for that demolition. As indicated, the minor subdivision is shown on here, and it just creates a more direct line and allows the development of the site, which now going to Exhibit A2, the proposed minor subdivision line, you can see, runs between Building A and Building B. This plan shows 7 additional buildings beyond the reconstruction of Building A, B through H, that are positioned to provide parking around them, positioned to avoid the power line easement where we can't put any buildings, and to create a comprehensive circulation system both for vehicles and for pedestrians. Building A will remain a 3-story building. It will have retail and commercial uses on the ground floor, with the Waker offices predominantly on the 2nd and 3rd floors. Building B, which is in the southeast corner of the site, is also a 3-story building, mostly retail uses on the 1st floor, with some self-storage at grade level at the rear of that building. And then the 2nd and 3rd floors are intended to be self-storage in total. All the other buildings, C through H, are 1-story structures containing retail restaurants with drive-throughs, and a supermarket. All of these are hoped for. There are no commitments as of yet, but this is the plan that the owners have been marketing to the marketplace, looking for retailers. Mr. Dietz will get into more of the details of what the buildings look like, what the floor plans are, and so on. The floor plans for buildings B through H at this point are just schematic, is that because we don't have specific tenants. The total square footage of all of the uses in all of the buildings is 278,843 square feet, an increase of approximately 48,000 square feet over the existing office uses.
To what?
Hmm?
To what?
278,843. Okay? If you want to see all of the breakdown, it is on sheet 2 in the lower right-hand corner. Each building, each type of use within the building are all detailed in there. As I said, the parking is well distributed throughout the site, located conveniently to all of the buildings. A total of 889 parking spaces are provided on site. The parking requirement per code, per borough code, without accounting for EV charging and shared parking, is 1,032 spaces. The state law for EV charging use allows us to take credit for the 36 EV parking spaces that are provided, resulting in a net parking requirement of 996 spaces. So we are technically 107 spaces short, technically need a parking variance for that shortfall, though when I get to our shared parking analysis, it indicates that there is more than adequate parking provided on site at all times. State legislation that I referenced requires the provision of make-ready electric vehicle charging at 4% of the required parking if there are more than 150 spaces, which of course we do. So we're required to provide 36 EV spaces, and of that, 5% need to be accessible parking spaces. So we've provided 2 chargers at 88 parking spaces. These EV parking spaces are distributed throughout the site with 10 spaces near Building A. We do note that Jersey Central, because of the transmission towers and the power lines, do not permit EV chargers within their easement. They're quite restrictive on the things that we can and cannot do in that easement, which are governed by an easement document that was executed between JCP&L and the original developer of this property. A comprehensive and extensive pedestrian circulation system is provided on site. We are providing a sidewalk connection along the southern frontage of Johnson Road that is located heading towards the Signature Place property. It then comes into the site and sidewalks extend along the frontage of buildings B and A. From building A, they extend out to the sidewalk that's extended along the shared access drive. We have multiple sidewalks that extend northerly from building B through the parking lot that connect to building C. From building C across to the helipad, which is staying, to building H, from building C over to building D, and continuing around. So there is a full, complete circulation system within the development, and from the development down to Signature Place and out, connecting to the sidewalk that comes out of the Stop and Shop driveway. We connect there, out to Littleton Road and across the Briarcliff.
Okay, you see between those two buildings there?
Between B and A?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why don't you put a sidewalk to connect to their path, which is in the woods? And maybe people who live there might wanna shop over here, you know?
Mr. Trutzler, that's an excellent idea, except, and you know I'm familiar with that site,
You know?
since I testified before this board on that application. That sidewalk does not extend to our,
No, but right there, you see the sidewalk in the woods?
it's through
Yeah.
here,
So why don't you just connect it?
because it's not our property.
Well,
And
why
they
don't you
didn't
talk to the person? I think those people would be happy to come into your
We
site.
can certainly have a conversation with them and see if they're
I mean, it'd
interested.
be easier if I lived up here to walk there than walk all the way down on Johnson Road and come up there, wouldn't it?
It would be, as long as they agree. You know, at the time that this was redeveloped, this was still an office building, there was not,
Yeah.
so we can look into that. Good point.
And tell me what this is up here, well, I can't read that. What does that say?
Oh, that is a playground area. At this point, we have shown, yes, I'm sorry. We're showing the playground area. We have the west end of this building on the plans is shown as a child care center. So this would be the play area associated with that child care center.
Okay, and what's it say here, plaza, what's gonna be on the plaza?
The plaza, right now, until we have a tenant and we know what uses are in the building, all the plazas we've assumed from a drainage perspective that they're all hardscape. They will not be all hardscape. But the specific design of those plazas will be dependent on what is in the building next to them. But it is an outdoor,
I don't know, what's a plaza gonna be? What's
well, it's gonna have seating
just like
areas.
umbrellas or something to sit there?
It may have umbrellas, it may have tables, it may just be, benches, there may be fountains. It hasn't been defined yet because we're really not sure of the tenant mix.
But when you were talking about that, sidewalk that goes from the woods to the property,
To the Signature Place,
correct?
yes.
I mean, they would have no other way of getting there because there's no sidewalk on Johnson Road.
I know. It was,
I think you're 100 parking spaces short. So this just prevents people from having to drive.
when I get into the shared parking, we're not really 100 spaces short, but I understand your point, Mr.
That's all I
Rutherford.
meant.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think it's a good plan, but it's not under our control. And, you know, I don't recall the specifics of the topography, but it's something we can explore. But both parties have to come to an agreement.
Now, regarding the sidewalk though along Johnson Road, as long as it's in the right of way of the road, you wouldn't require signature place approval to do that. So we would have to pull out that previous site plan to see if there's a possibility for an off-track improvement here within the right of way of Johnson Road. At least bring it to the driveway for signature place, without their approval.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it was probably 7 years ago or 8 years ago that we were in for that approval. There are no sidewalks that go down to Johnson Road.
Right.
So,
Well, there's going to be a lot of development there, and, especially with 1515 Route 10 coming in, there's going to be a lot of traffic there, so I think that would be something we would be interested in having you explore.
okay, understood.
I agree. And I think too, the landscaping or the topography of the road, if you were to say just walk on that side by our pump house, I think there's an SMC, right?
Yeah.
It's a town,
Right?
yeah, pumping
If you were
station.
walking there, I think there's a little bit of a hill, so it's not very visible in traffic, so I think it would be a hazard. So I think any kind of solution around there would be helpful.
There's a path through the woods, you can jump right up off of Johnson Road. You probably ran it, John.
I'm sure he has.
Almost got hit by a construction beam the other day, across the road.
On Franklin.
Well, that's in precipitate, John, that's why.
I'll remember where to send my lawsuit.
Eric, are we into detailed testimony here, or is this still part of your general overall presentation?
No, this is pretty detailed at this point. I got a fair amount to go on the site plan, so.
Okay, because at some point I want to stop and circle back to some of the things that you brought up, and just kind of flush them out. I don't want Eric to testify here for 2.5 hours and have a list of lots of things to come back to, so.
Okay.
At some point, I think we should pause and kind of circle back.
All right,
You gotta
give me about
speak into the mic more.
10 minutes.
Okay.
You can hear me okay, right?
Yeah.
I'm never accused of being soft-spoken.
We hear you loud and clear.
So, I talked about all the sidewalk connections. The primary driveways through the site, the southern Johnson Road driveway coming across the front, the extension of the shared driveway are 28 feet in width because those are carrying more traffic through the site. The northern Johnson Road driveway and the aisles within the parking lot are 24 foot in width, consistent with what you typically find in shopping centers. The boulevard itself is 38 feet in width with two 15-foot wide lanes and an 8-foot median, except where we have provided turn lanes. We have some, Mr. Maltz raised these points, we have some additional striping to provide and some additional signage to clearly indicate the usage of those median left turn lanes. We've placed them at critical points, one, right by buildings E and F, one by the supermarket driveway, and one at the other driveway going in towards building H. We have monument signs that are proposed at both Johnson Road driveways in conformance with the zoning code. As I indicated at the outset, the existing monument sign out at Littleton Road will be replaced by a freestanding sign, and in the island at Route 10 will also be a freestanding sign. Both of those signs are in conformance with the ordinance. Mr. Dietz will talk more about them. Obviously, because Route 10 has the higher speeds, we have a larger freestanding sign there. The freestanding sign on Littleton, because it's a lower speed road and because I have the power lines above us, is shorter.
What's the sign gonna say?
Mr. Dietz will get into the details of that. He designed that,
Okay.
so he has that on his plans.
Let me get, while you're talking about the road, see how you come in off of 202?
Yes,
And it gives you that big loop around. I think that radius has to be greater, and you have to move that road back a little bit, because you tend to move to the left when you make that turn.
I'm sorry,
Okay?
Mr. Gilson, which turn are you talking about?
Okay, I'm coming from 202.
Yep, coming from here.
No, I'm coming from the other side.
Are you coming here?
Yeah, okay, I'm turning in.
Yeah.
See that loop there?
Yep.
Well, you tend to move to the left.
Mhm.
You're gonna have more traffic because you're gonna have a lot more people here. So that should be wider and not so sharp,
Frank, are you
in my
saying,
opinion.
Frank, are you saying that radius should be enlarged and
Correct.
the overall width of the driveway should it be expanded?
Yeah, I think it should be,
Okay.
I feel it too when I go in there.
because
And we
you
can
can
take- we
swing
can
over
take-
there.
We can take a look at that. The one, this is a balance. You make it wider, you get people traveling faster.
They travel fast, that's why they slip over.
Well, we don't want them to go even faster if you make it more.
They're not gonna go faster.
So we can take a look at that. We also have to look at what the easement agreement permits, because that driveway, even though we have the right to travel on it, we have to see if we have the right to make improvements to that. And those improvements would, have to be approved by the owner of the Stop and Shop lot.
Yeah, well, I think they would rather have improvements than accidents.
Well, I don't know what they will say. We haven't broached that. We can broach that with them and have
Let
that
me just say
discussion.
something, the reason I asked you about the parking before, okay? There was a time when there were so many cars in that building that people parked on Stop and Shop parking, and they weren't too happy about that either, So this all works both ways.
I understand that, the parking demand at office buildings has dramatically changed.
Yeah.
Waker's business has dramatically changed. The pandemic is part of it, but just changing business practices is another part of it, how business occurs. So, but we can certainly, it's a good point, we'll take a look at it.
It's not all office buildings, remember, we're gonna have commercial there, okay?
No,
So it's-
absolutely.
I'm just trying to bring these issues that came up before, so it don't come up again.
No, it's a very good point, Mr. Johnson.
While we're talking about parking too, Eric, while we're talking about parking too, the backside of Sunrise, there is, access for the fire department back there.
We're maintaining that.
I understand, but the parking spaces, to me, I don't know, indicates where there would be access for the fire truck if it had to get back there to use that access.
The aerial is not really, we are not changing that connection.
It's up by the X a little bit further.
The easement area is shown here. We're maintaining,
So that it is blocked off then?
yeah, we're maintaining
Okay,
that
all
access
right.
that exists today.
Got it. I see it now.
Okay.
I see it.
All right.
There's a transformer.
So there's no spaces where that access.
No, I see,
No.
yeah, it's blocked off.
No.
I see it now. I see it now.
Is everyone in agreement to leave the parking lot in a manner where it's two-way traffic? And not a one-way loop? I just feel, and if you look at the Kohl's Plaza, it's not always, but it can be a challenge to walk across the lot to get to your car with two-way traffic. If traffic only went one way, let's just go to Giuseppe's for a second and wrapped around and came back out the front of Giuseppe's to go back out onto 202. instead of having two-way traffic there, it would be both easier for traffic and safer for pedestrians. Having said that, I wanted to see if anyone reflected on that, to see if this would be improved by having one-way traffic.
Maybe we can ask Mr. Moles.
Okay.
What he would think that testimony.
I haven't considered that, so I can't agree with it.
Okay.
Fair enough, sorry, I jumped the gun.
Yep.
All right, so refuse and recycling will be accommodated in individual dumpster enclosures distributed throughout the site. Buildings D and E, which are in the northeast corner of the site because of their proximity, share an enclosure. Building C, which is currently contemplated to be a supermarket, so we've accommodated the refuse and recycling in their loading area, which is on the west side of that building. Loading areas are also distributed around the site, convenient to each of the buildings. For the most part, these are smaller stores, so the predominant delivery vehicles will be panel trucks, box trucks, single unit trucks. The supermarket may, will likely get some small tractor trailers, but all of the stores are on the smaller side, so the delivery vehicles will also be on the smaller side. But
We're
they,
talking about dumpsters, Eric, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're
Just-
taking a breath.
we are talking about dumpsters and enclosures. So they will be most likely, like most of them are front load pickups. And refuse recycling containers will be in the enclosures as well. The enclosures are appropriately sized, and we can, depending on the users, it will, the frequency of pickup will be driven by their specific demands when we know who they are.
And are they on here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just in reference to the one at building B,
Yes.
in that corner, I
Okay.
don't think that's
I
an
see.
easy, accessible one, it's on an angle.
Well, we did that because this way they can either pull, a lot of these are small units, they'll pull close, they'll roll it out, pick it up, drop it, put it back in. So this one, they can approach from either direction, whether they come in from the east side of building B or they come around the back, depending on because the dumpster, there's a dumpster located between buildings A and B. So we've provided two there. Building C, which is a supermarket, would have it in the loading area. Building D has the dumpster enclosure, building G, off the southwest corner of building G. Building F is on the west side, adjacent to the loading area of Stop and Shop. Buildings D and E share one, which is tucked back by the detention basin. And building H has one, that is at the end of the access aisle, coming in from the boulevard.
Where's the one for the supermarket?
It's in the loading area. That most likely would be a compactor unit, but it will depend on the specific operational requirements of the operator.
You have a place for tractor trailers to go in the supermarket?
We have, this is a prototype of a possible grocer, and they have two doors. One which would be for, refuse, and the other for loading.
What's on the other end? It looks like it's green, like you can back in there or something.
Are you talking about on the north side of building C?
No, west side, east side, east side.
The east side?
Yeah,
There's just a little planting area, between the, cart, storage areas that are adjacent to the building.
Where, I'm sorry, but this is so tiny, it's hard to see. Where are the doors to get into the building? Is that on that?
I think that's best covered by Mr. Dietz with his floor plan. Essentially, we have a series of doors along the north side of building A and building B. There's also a door at the southwest corner, a building B for the self-storage. But essentially, they're on the front side, and then there are either emergency egress or service doors at the back, but it's easier on his floor plans to see that in the architectural plans. There is a fair amount of topography across the site with the highest elevations near Littleton Road, where the elevation is approximately 367. To the southeast corner at Johnson Road is at 340, and the low point of the site is at the intersection of Johnson and Route 10 at 330. You drive through that site and it doesn't look like there's 37 feet of fall from the northeast corner to the southwest, but there is, because it's a fairly large tract. Now, I do have another exhibit. This is in the plan set, so unless you think I need to mark it, I wasn't going to.
No, there's no changes to the job.
No,
What sheet number is it?
this is sheet 4 of the site plan set. It is entitled Site Preparation Plan Full Build Out. I really want to just use this to talk about the steep slopes, which
When you say there's a big topography, you're measuring from Littleton Road or the parking lot of Stop and Shop?
no, from our site, a high point on our site is 367 underneath the power lines along Littleton Road to 330. I mean, the Stop and Shop, the shared driveway is about 365 at Littleton Road.
Eric, that 330 elevation, is that the low point of the swale or the land immediately adjacent to it?
No, it is actually the inlet at the corner of the Johnson. The swale itself is actually a little higher.
Higher.
Yeah, because that ties into the storm sewer system up Route 10 from the site, as you
Yeah, Route
all
10
know.
continues to
Route
drop.
10 is sloping downwards.
Good.
I don't have my set of plans, that colorization is on.
It's on the plan set, yes. So as you can see from this drawing, the steep slope areas, and I think the workout plan, up, down.
Can you tell us what the colors represent?
Yes, that's why I got up, because I can't see them. And you notice I keep taking my glasses off to read. The 15 to 20%, which is not regulated under your ordinance, are the pale yellow. 20 to 25 is the pale green, 25 to 30 is the cyan, and 30 to 100 is the dark blue. You can see the dark blue is along the ditch in areas by the 1625 building and adjacent to Stop and Shop, in the conservation easement where we're not touching it, and around the 225 building, and then down at Johnson Road. So they are scattered in various places, and looking at it, you can see that they are adjacent to buildings, adjacent to parking areas, and we're part of that, construction of the site. So we are seeking a variance to serve those areas with slopes that exceed 20%. Later on, I'll give you the planning reasons for that. We are also proposing some retaining walls, primarily at the various detention basins, but also one along the Stop and Shop property line. I'm gonna go back to Exhibit A2. And the walls don't easily show on here, but they do show on the plans. There is a wall between building C and the Stop and Shop loading area. Generally, these walls are 5 to 6 feet in height, but at Basin 6, which is by building F, which is the northwest building, the wall extends to as much as 8 feet, and at Basins 3 and 4, which are along Johnson Road, there are points where they're 10 to 12 feet in height. The project is categorized as a major development. under state regulations as it disturbs more than 1 acre of land and creates more than quarter acre of new impervious, and is subject to the green infrastructure regulations that went into effect in 2021, and also is subject to the stormwater rules that went into effect in July of this year, where we not only have to look at the rainfall, the precipitation amounts that exist that are for today, but the state has looked into their crystal ball and came up with precipitation values for the year 2100. So we are designing for storms that they anticipate happening in 77 years. So that's why the stormwater report, which Mr. Hall had the joy of reviewing, is about not quite as big as the traffic report, but close, because we have to look at 6 storms, not 3. So the stormwater report is dated August 18th of 23, and that describes how we have met the requirements of the state and the borough regulations related to stormwater for all of those 6 storms. There are 3 main drainage areas on site, as I indicated before, 2 of which go to Route 10. One is directed to that gravel or riprap line channel in front of the 1625 building. The other drainage area is to the corner of Johnson Road and Route 10. We have to look at those separately because the state is going to look at them separately as part of our access application. The third drainage area is much smaller, and that's the southeast portion of the site, which drains to Johnson Road into Malapartis Brook.
Can I just ask about that last
Yeah.
drainage point that you made? So, your drainage comes out of that driveway onto Johnson
It's piped.
Pike?
Yeah, we don't
And then
sheet
which
flow.
side- Okay, and then what side of that, of Johnson Road does it, go to? On Pike's side?
I don't recall if it goes down the Signature Place side and then crosses,
But
or
it
if it
does
crosses,
cross.
but it does, because
It's
the
too small.
Malapartis Brook goes from the
Right.
pond on Signature Place underneath Johnson Road and then through the Southeast Mars and the Columbia Gas pipeline area.
But it's.
But it's
You're
piped.
telling me it's piped to the other side of Johnson Road
Correct,
already?
correct. There is no sheet flow across Johnson Road from our site.
Or into our side of that?
No. No,
Okay.
we're capturing,
Alright.
you know, all of the on-site, except for maybe, you know, some 20, 30, 40 feet of the
Yeah,
driveway.
no, because we had a problem with that, over there a few years
Right.
back, so.
The other thing that we have to do under the state's stormwater regulations is not only do we have to attenuate the runoff from our site. We have to reduce the runoff from our site to each of those drainage points by 50%, by at least 50% for the 2-year storm, 25% for the 10-year storm, and 20% for the 100-year storm. So whatever is going to each of those points today will be reduced by anywhere from 20 to 50% in the future. So even though we're increasing the impervious coverage, we have to hold that back, which is why if you look on our site plans, there are so many detention basins on the property to manage and control that and reduce the flow to those points. Mr. Hall raised the point that there are points drainage issues at Route 10 and Johnson Road. That's probably a DOT issue. All I can say is that we are reducing the amount of our contribution to that by a significant amount. So I'm not saying it's gonna go away, but our contribution to that will be reduced.
Eric, can we pause there for 1 second?
Yeah. I think, yeah, that,
I want to circle back to several things, but while we're on drainage, I just want to be clear, you're proposing bioretention basins because you have to, because they're green infrastructure, correct?
that is correct.
Right. Now, under phase 1 final only, what are you proposing for stormwater control?
We are, and I will get to that, but we are proposing a temporary detention basin in the lawn area next to the 1625 building. That is also a bioretention basin. We will plant that with shrubs.
Okay, it's not
And
labeled, it's not labeled as a bioretention basin, it's labeled as a detention basin, which
We'll
is,
fix that.
which is not green infrastructure compliant, as you know.
We'll fix that.
All right, so we're gonna do a complete overhaul of that basin, so it complies with green infrastructure, it's a bioretention basin.
I wouldn't call it a complete overhaul, but we will make it a bioretention basin. We will plant it with shrubs and ground covers. We're not gonna plant trees in it like we do in all the rest of the bioretention basins that are permanent.
Mhm.
We have a whole hierarchy of plant material of sedges, ground covers, shrubs, and trees, because these basins are permanent. The basin by the 1625 building is temporary, and I'll show that in a little bit, because in phase one, which is just the reconstruction of the 225 building, we're increasing impervious coverage, so I have to manage that runoff. So, we're gonna comply, because it is temporary, and I know Mr. Hall's next question would be, how temporary? And I don't know.
Right.
So, it will be a bioretention basin, to the extent that, then that complies with green infrastructure, and whether it's 6 months or, you know, a little bit longer, it will be compliant.
Are the retention basins the dark green around?
Yes,
Okay.
so.
Bioretention basins.
Yeah.
Bio.
Bioretention basin.
Detention basins are gone.
Yeah, we don't design detention basins anymore. Rarely do we even do retention basins, which are wet ponds. So these
So
are
what is the bio? That's with all the plantings?
with the plant material. So
Okay.
there is a plant environment in there, and what that does is help absorb, the contaminants, it holds the sediments, and creates a natural attenuation of stormwater. There's uptake by the plant material, and it also provides for water quality. Because this site is in a metropolitan planning area, a PA1, and is a previously developed site, and none of the areas that we're developing are what they call wooded. And wooded means that there is leaf litter and so on underneath. It's not a tree in a lawn area. We don't have groundwater recharge. The soils were very variable out here, so we went with bioretention basins that have under drain. So the runoff is clean, goes through a 2-foot soil layer, and then underneath that is a under drain system that then connects into the outlet structure. Infiltration will occur where the soils underneath are suitable, but the design does not depend on infiltrating into the ground.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On building 225. Okay, the report here by French and Perillo points out that you have a sump there, and the sump discharges into the sanitary sewer, which is not against the law. You're gonna, if that's the case, you're gonna have to move that water someplace else.
Correct.
You're gonna do that.
Yes.
Good, because that's just.
Which,
overloads the sewer system.
Mr. Tritzler, which, report is that from?
Yeah, you can, it's,
French and Perillo.
French and Perillo is October 13th.
No, I have a copy, I just wanted to.
October 13th. Under drains and sumps, page 17.
Page 17.
That's what it says, isn't it?
Probably 7.
This is Joe Nord's report?
Yeah.
It's 17 pages long?
No.
No.
Is that page 17?
Yeah. I don't know where he got that from. It's in his report. so
Okay.
we should- That's referencing something else, that's all.
All right, I'll find it.
Just one more question, Eric, about
Yeah.
the sidewalk, and Leon, if you could listen as well. when we were going over the overlay ordinance, we did talk pretty extensively, about that sidewalk coming out to Johnson Road and how you would transverse that around the pumping station already. So there was already talk about bringing that over to the Johnson, or the Signature Place driveway, but you stopped it there, so I know we talked about it, but just a little clarification.
We only put it along our site frontage, which is what we thought was our responsibility. What we did, as you know, Johnson Road is very wide there. And we didn't wanna touch that slope. So what we did is we narrowed Johnson Road. We moved the curb line into Johnson Road so that we automatically had a relatively flat area in which to build the sidewalk. It aligns with the sidewalk of the curb line that we're bringing down Johnson Road, so that, we did not have to disturb that slope, which
That
is
pump
also.
house is further down, closer towards the driveway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're stopped way before the pump.
Yeah,
house.
the pump station is generally about halfway between our property line and the Signature Place driveway. So we have stopped at the end of our frontage.
Right, but there was even talk about going and wrapping around the back of that to get to the driveway. Back when we were talking about the.
Go around the back of
Pump
there.
house.
Yeah,
So
Eric,
you wouldn't have as much of a slope coming down from Johnson Road. That sidewalk would go behind that pump house area.
Oh, okay. Well, because I don't believe the easement that you have from Signature Place for the pump station comes all the way to the property line. And in looking at the future extension of it, we thought, you know, this would be a better location. And in looking at it, because our concern when we're discussing, you know, developing the ordinance was, well, how do we get past that steep slope?
Right.
You know, and we figured out the best way to do that was to take some pavement out of that road, which is way too wide, and create an area for a sidewalk. And that can continue, you know, down in front of Signature Place, because that road is still, I believe is still fairly wide in that area. It's been a while since I looked at that specifically.
Is that correctly on my recollection of that?
yeah, we did talk about that possibility, but what I suggest to Eric is when you reach out to Matt Cali, and when you talk to him
Well,
about.
Matt Kelly doesn't own that building. I'm not, it was a Roseland building.
Right.
I don't know, because they've divested themselves of a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know who now manages that building. I can find out, because we still work for them. I just don't know who it is.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanna talk to the manager or the property owner, but whoever you talk to.
Well, it'd be the property owner.
Right,
Manager's
could be the
not
property
gonna-
owner, correct. Which I still think is Roseland, but who knows? But, so now you kinda have 2 points to talk to him about. The possibility of the rear sidewalk connection, I say rear in Signature Place, and would they consent to a sidewalk connection down Johnson Road and up into their driveway to connect into their internal pedestrian circulation? I mean, we all know it makes perfect sense to do it. It's just a question, would you be willing to allow it to happen?
Well, and also, who's gonna pay for it?
Well, you are, obviously.
I
Who
would
owns
think
it?
you'd wanna be drawing those people into your site.
Yeah, Matt Cowley still owns the property. Liz just looked up the
Oh,
tax card.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I still think it's simpler to go between those two buildings. No one's gonna walk down that way.
It would be cheaper
On the
too.
Johnson Road where you have heavy traffic. No.
So, good points. We will reach out.
Well, utilities.
Yeah, so we talked about fire retention basins, sanitary sewer. There is an existing sanitary sewer which extends along the southern property line behind, the 225 building. It extends all the way out to Johnson Road, then goes to the pump station on, Johnson Road. It will continue to serve Building A as it does today, and Building B will also be connected to that existing sewer, At this point, we're showing one connection at the southeast corner of the building. It may be multiple depending on how the interior of that building lays out. But it is just a lateral connection from the building to that existing sewer line. We are then proposing a new sanitary sewer conveyance system that will be in the northern portion of the tract that will connect the 6 buildings on the north side of the power line easement. That will also extend out out to Johnson Road through the northern Johnson Road driveway, and connect into that existing sanitary, which runs along the west side of Johnson Road. All of the site sewage is conveyed to the borough's pump station. Excuse me. Mr. Hall asked us that we evaluate the operation of that pump station. I recall it was upgraded at the time we were doing the Signature Place project, to see if it can accommodate the increase in flow, and we will do so. We'll just need the information on the pump station, the pump curves, all that nice technical stuff that I won't bore you with, and look at it. The increase in the sewage demand, based on the current development program, is calculated to be a little over 11,000 gallons a day. The existing flow, and this is all based on DEP flow criteria, the existing flow from the 2 office buildings is a little over 23,000 gallons a day, and with the proposed development, it'll be a little over 34,300 gallons a day. So it's not a huge increase in flow, but it is an increase in flow.
Eric, can you give me those calculations?
Yes, yes. I'll give you, well, you don't care about the water, that's Southeast Mars.
No, I don't.
You do, but not that much. Water, there are 2 existing water services to the site, one from Littleton Road, which serves the 225 building. That will remain and continue to serve the 225 building. And there is one from Johnson Road to 625 building, which is in the northeastern part of the site. Each of these services have meter vaults, and we're working with Southeast Mars to lay out the extension of the water service. They would like to continue to use the existing meter vault, even though Southeast Mars has followed the rest of the water utilities in the state and gone to hot boxes. But we may be able, because building D, we have a utility room fairly close to the road, so we may be able to put the backflow preventer in that building, so we don't have to build a hot box there. If we do have to build a hot box, we will buffer, we will plant around it, so you don't have this very large aluminum box sitting above the ground, which they require. We're still working on how to serve building B with the water, but we're working with Southeast Morris on that.
Eric, is Southeast Morris aware that this is a minor subdivision also? And again, I'm bringing up this issue that the last applicant, you heard the resolution getting read. Once they became aware of a minor sub, they insisted upon separate water service connections.
Well, they know it's 2 lots,
Okay.
so. We are providing 7 new hydrants through the site. I saw the fire chief's comments. It's pretty standard that we provide source connections on all the hydrants. I'm gonna double check our details to make sure. It's a quick coupling for the fire department to during a fire to connect to that. It's pretty standard, so I just wanna make sure we didn't grab an old detail. We're maintaining one at the 225 building, so there's a total of 8 hydrants located strategically throughout the site. At this point, we don't know where, and Mr. Dietz will talk about this more, we don't know where the fire department connections are. Obviously, they have to comply with the building code, and that would be something done at building permit stage. All the buildings will be sprinklered. The project will generate an increase in water demand of approximately 7,500 gallons per day, based on DEP regulations. The existing water demand is just under 29,000 gallons a day, and we're proposing a little over 36,000 gallons a day. Gas, electric, telephone, and cable will also be brought into the site, where need be, and all will be installed underground. Gas and electric meters, and to the extent we need water meters, they'll all be located in the utility areas that are set forth in each building. Our lighting, in our lighting design, I have to submit a new lighting plan to show that we are going to provide at least a half a foot candle throughout the entire parking lot. We have decided, because we have a limitation on a 15-foot high pole along the southern property line. We also have a 15-foot pole limitation within the 290-foot wide power line easement. We decided we're gonna make every fixture in the site 15 feet in height, because it's a better aesthetic, it's a better plan, and it becomes more uniform. So all of the lighting is high efficiency LED decorative lights. It's consistent with the architectural theme of the development, which Mr. Dietz will show you. All of these lights will be on dusk to dawn. There are 85 single fixtures, all again at a mounting height of 15, and 38 dual head fixtures. There are 39 wall mount fixtures on the buildings, which again are full cutoff, high efficiency LED fixtures. These are mounted at either 8 feet or 15 feet, depending on their location on the buildings. We are also proposing catenary or string lights in each of the plazas at buildings D, E, and F. Our plans had originally shown them buildings A and B, and it was pointed out that the ordinance does not permit them more than 700 feet for Route 10, so we have eliminated those in the plazas at building A and B. The freestanding signs and the monument signs are illuminated by up-directed spotlights that are shielded. Those are detailed on the plans. The average intensity of lighting for the entire site is 1.4 foot candles, which is a nice even light. It is not too bright. It is an appropriate level of illumination within a commercial development such as this. The individual, when you look at the individual parking lots at each of the buildings, those averages range from 1.8 to 2.1. What brings it down are the adjacent areas, the lawn areas, some of the roadways, bring the overall average for the site down to 1.4. But the parking lots generally are 1.8 to 2. And other than at the shared driveway and at the 3 driveways to public streets, we do not exceed 0.5 foot candles at any property line. We were especially concerned and paid attention to the illumination levels next to Signature Place and Sunrise. So those are practically 0 or 0.1 at the property line there. Landscaping, the landscaping plan is quite extensive. There's a variety of trees and shrubs. Unfortunately, because of the restrictions placed on us by Jersey Central, there are no trees within the power line easements. They only allow very small trees, and we thought a better design approach to go with a mix of evergreen and deciduous shrubs. We are removing, as shown on sheet 4 of the plans, 183 trees that range in size from 5 inches in diameter to 42 inches in diameter. Large trees are around the 1625 level. Outside of the
Where
basins,
are you remove, where, are these trees along the, Signature Place? property?
No.
Huh?
no,
There's none there.
none there that we are removing. Because we're not going any closer to Signature Place than we are today,
Or to the nursing, or to
to
the,
the Sunrise, no,
okay.
no.
So to clarify on that, so when you're looking at the sketches, on item 2, there's light green here. So that green is actually extending in, so it's not like we're cutting trees down to plant grass, the trees are staying, you're gonna.
Along the perimeter here?
Yes.
On the south side?
Yeah.
No, we're maintaining the existing vegetation. We are planting some additional trees in there for infill.
And then, so is some of the existing parking lot today becoming some of that light green shaded area?
No, we're holding that curb line. There may be some islands or bump outs there, but we're basically holding the existing curb line, and not going any closer.
And
And-
planting trees.
And planting trees. We are actually, heading back the pavement that extends closer to Johnson Road, down at the far southeastern corner, because we have a bioretention basin there.
Well said.
You know what, it just came into my mind again, why I said you ought to put a path, between those two buildings. Cause I was driving through there once and I saw a couple people walking through the woods to that path. You know what they were doing? They were going to the Stop and Shop. They could've gone up the sidewalk, down the sidewalk to Stop and Shop, but people go to the shortest way. And that's why, that, in my mind, that's a better thing than the other
We
plan.
will certainly explore that.
Mayor, while you have a second, is that curbing's gonna be replaced on the existing curb?
Yeah,
It's gonna be all-
yeah, we're gonna replace that.
The other thing that I do have a question about is, snow removal and where you plan on putting that stuff with the park.
Well, with global warming, there is no more snow.
I know it never rains in Morris Plains, but nobody said that about snow, so it's gotta.
I mean, we have a number of areas where that can be placed. Obviously, if it's a major snowstorm, some of it's gonna have to get trucked out. But we have a lot of areas in which we can, place it, and, you know, push it off the edge of the parking areas and, deal with it as we, you know, can.
That detention basin in front of 225, are you cleaning that out or doing anything with it?
No, that's in the conservation easement.
Okay.
So, we are, including the basins, we are proposing 229 deciduous trees, 66 evergreen trees, and over 2,300 deciduous and evergreen shrubs, plus ornamental grasses, perennials, and ground cover plantings. So while the trees that are going in obviously are smaller than what are coming out, for the most part, we are putting in significantly more trees than exist on site today. It's rare in today's day and age that I get to say that on a project. Usually we're cutting down this many trees and planting this many, because that's the way site development works. In this case, we're creating, even with the restrictions from Jersey Central, a lot of planting. And a lot of that is in the basin, so it's gonna soften the view of the buildings, from those, without hiding them. And also create shade in the parking areas, north of and south of the power lines. In addition to the subdivision and site plan approvals we're seeking, in the borough, we're also seeking tree removal approval for those 183 trees. Approval for soil movement, we have, based on the current plan, a 9,000 yard export. The Morris County Soil Conservation, we need a certification from them, as well as what they call a 5G3 permit, which is to the DEP that establishes controls for stormwater discharge during construction. We have received Morris County Planning Board approval already. We will need a TWA, a sewer extension permit from the DEP that will also require borough review and Morris Township review before going to DEP. We also will need approval of the water. Southeast Morris has a master permit, so we don't have to go to DEP on that, we just deal with Southeast Morris. And of course, one of my favorite permits is dealing with the DOT. It is a major with planning. It has been submitted, it has been deemed complete, and we are awaiting comments, which will come sometime next year. So that is the conclusion of my testimony on the full build out. So if we want to take a break, and if Mr. Hall has questions or the board has questions, the next part of my testimony is going to deal with the phase 1 development only, so you can see how, which is what we're seeking final site plan approval for.
Did you have comments?
Yes, yes. Eric, you mentioned something about the various cross easements for access, drainage, utilities, and shared parking, that you wanted to get those based on preliminary. Was that your statement, or at preliminary?
We wanted them as a condition of approval. They would be, I'll defer to Mr. Malman, but I mean, they would be part of, we would need them for even the phase 1 development, because the phase 1 development relies upon access through
45.
And it's, for as long as I've worked on this, I can't remember the 2 lot numbers. 4501 is the west lot, 45 is the east lot. And whatever the tax assessor decides to call them, we need to have that cross easement, we need to cross the shared parking, we're gonna need utilities, because even the temporary stormwater that we build in phase 1 goes on to, goes from 4501 to 4502. So that would need to be part of preliminary.
Yeah, this is something for the attorneys to think about. I'm not quite sure how we're gonna structure this, because the cross easements are gonna be different for a full preliminary for the whole site versus phase 1 final only. So I just asked the attorneys to have some thought. The timing of those cross easements as it relates to granting preliminary and as it relates to granting final and allowing final on phase 1 only and allowing phase 1 to go to construction. So when the board looks at this application, you have to look at it in 2 different lights. Preliminary for the whole site, everything. And then for phase 1 only, just building 225, the renovation of that building. So you always have to keep both those contexts in your mind as you consider this application. And again, there's gonna have to be a distinction, at least in my mind, in terms of these cross easements for preliminary as a whole and for phase 1 final only. Because keep in mind that once this minor subdivision gets approved and deeds get recorded, these lots can be sold to anybody. So the borough has to have assurances in terms of cross easements that phase 1 final works on its own, standalone forever, and ultimately preliminary and future final for the entire tract. So that's something that's been given some very serious legal thought.
And along with Mr. Hall's comments, remember, we have to come back for final for future buildings. We're only seeking final approval today in this application for the building A, the 225 building. We will be back, God willing, I will be here presenting for the future buildings, for final on those future buildings. So there will be opportunities as necessary to make adjustments to those easements as we move forward.
But not to the site work. The site work is, that's what you want.
Well, maybe, Mr. Leon, maybe it'd be best if I just touch on phase one, cause I think that will help clarify things. It's very brief testimony, and I think that will help, kind of, so I have
You have one more exhibit, correct?
one more exhibit.
Just call it the phase one exhibit?
Yes. So this is exhibit A3 with today's date.
The 11th, 12/11/23.
Yes, ma'am.
So same area photograph, but it really depicts.
It is
one.
same aerial as in exhibits A1 and A2. Building A, the 225 building is, as shown on exhibit A2, but the rest of the site is generally the way it is today, except for, to facilitate movement, from the building A so that people can come to the front of the building, is that we're punching a, access aisle through the existing parking lot to come out to Johnson Road. We're not gonna reconstruct the Johnson Road driveway in this phase, but we are providing an access aisle through. So, the improvements in this area are the same. There is, or will be a bioretention basin next to the 1625 building, because this, the drainage in the building A area comes diagonally across the site, and today it comes around the west side of the 1625 building and then discharges into that ditch out in front of the site. Because we're increasing the impervious coverage, we need to attenuate that flow. Thankfully, we have a lawn area that's there that we can use to build a temporary basin that will be planted, and address the flows that come off of the phase one portion of the site. So other than that, you know, this improvement is the same. As I said, we're not building, we can't build the driveway off of Route 10 at this point, because the 1625 building has to stay intact, and which is why we're seeking the ability to construct this building without having our DOT approval. We would also not need sewer approval or water approval, because the building is not being increased in size. There are no restaurants proposed in this building. It is just retail, and the flow rates for retail and office under the sewer regulations and the water regulations are the same. So there is no increase in sewer flows, water flows, and the access will continue to have the shared driveway to Littleton Road and the driveway to Johnson Road.
So in terms of the new lots, Mr. Keller, I forgot the numbers as well, but basically the work in phase one is entirely on that plot,
Except for, you know, removing islands and painting islands through here to define an access way, more directly to the existing driveway on Johnson Road.
And
That is the only work that's
and the
occurring.
bioretention basin.
And the bioretention basin.
Correct. But the access points on the perimeter of the site,
Nothing
changing at all.
changes, correct. So,
Eric, that access way through lot 45 for phase one final only,
yes.
that pavement's in really poor condition. Were you planning on milling and paving that temporarily?
We haven't gotten to that level, but we'll, you know, to make it functional, we will improve that. You know, we wanna have a nice entry, you know,
Where is that, Mr. Keller?
just the access
Okay.
driveway, you know, we'll make sure that it's in a, you know, upgraded condition to serve people coming to building A.
Do you have any more,
Yes, I do.
Okay.
We have 13 minutes left, so I wanna do some rapid firing here.
Okay.
Mr. Keller, I believe you said you were going to eliminate the parking variance in the parking area, right, with revised plans? The 0.5 minimum?
Oh, the lighting, yes,
Yeah, okay.
correct.
And did you also say you were gonna eliminate all but one of the site plan design waivers with revised plans?
I think of the ones you added.
Yes.
There was some waivers originally.
Hold on a second.
Just the additional waivers?
I think that's one.
Yeah, just the additional, sorry, I have to get to that right page of my, I think it's the next.
You have the on report?
I do.
Okay. You should report dated November 16th for this
Right.
fall.
So the two design waivers we listed would remain. The shade trees, we can't comply with because we have a limitation based on Johnson Road, so we would be asking for that. The base pavement, I'm gonna comply. The hairpin striping, I'm going to comply. The installation of sidewalks within the street right away along Johnson Road, I think goes back to what was is a planning board decision as to, is the sidewalk network that we're proposing a better and suitable alternative to putting sidewalks along the roadway, which don't serve anything. The fire zones, we will comply with the fire chief's request. And I think that the paved area, we'll discuss that with the fire department, but all of the buildings have clear access to the front of the buildings. So I think we comply with that, but we'll confirm that with the fire chief.
My point here is, there's gonna be revisions to the plans that I think this board needs to see well before you consider taking any kind of action. So I don't know if this is something you're shooting to get back to us 10 days or 14 days before the January meeting, the February meeting, but they have to be back to us before this board takes an action.
Understood.
And there may be additional revisions too as we work our way through the next hearing, but this is not something that will be a subject to. Now, the one issue you touched on, I mentioned to Attorney Brewer, is you want the ability to advance phase one final to construction without the DOT permit, correct?
Correct.
That's something we're gonna have to talk about and decide. You're asking for preliminary for the entire site. Obviously, for the entire site preliminary, you need that DOT permit to get a signed site plan.
Understood. But that's why we've limited it to phase one final only.
Right, but part of your preliminary is phase one final. So I don't know how this board, and again, this has to be ironed out, how this board can sign or have the professionals sign the preliminary site plan for the entire tract, when it includes phase one final, without a DOT permit.
Unless we prepare preliminary and final phase one drawings, and we have preliminary drawings for the remainder of the site. We can't build the remainder, of the site, at least the northern part, without, the 6 buildings on the northern part of the site can't be constructed with the 1625 building in place.
Right.
It's physically impossible. And the 1625 building can't go away until 225 is done. And it's based on, there's no direct access to the state highway. There is some increase in traffic, but it's to a county road and to a municipal road. If on exhibit A3, if hypothetically, if this is all that we were going to build, I wouldn't need DOT approval.
Exactly.
Where it comes in is putting a driveway out here entirety of the development, may create an increase in traffic to the state highway system that would breach the threshold that they have established. We don't have direct access to Route 10. So, I mean, if we can structure in a way that, I mean, our plans already have preliminary for the whole site and final for phase one. If we create a set that's preliminary and final phase one, and then preliminary for everything, maybe that helps.
It strikes me it could be a developer's agreement issue, it could be a note in the plans, it's a timing issue. I think from the borough standpoint, it's helpful, because the borough would like this, I think you don't want to work on the main building and not have to wait for the DOT permit, 18 months down the road.
Yeah.
In the ordinance, it says site plan applications shall be made initially for preliminary site plan approval for the entire L2 mixed-use commercial use overlay zone tract. So you're obligated, your first application has to be preliminary for the entire tract. Now, can you take preliminary and carve it up amongst the two lots? I don't know the answer to that.
I'm not sure you have to do that, Mr. Wallman.
Well, you have to apply for preliminary for the entire tract.
We're doing that.
Right.
That's the application.
Right. Right, but now I'm raising the question, how does the borough sign off on a site plan on preliminary for the entire lot without an outside agency approval in hand?
Because there could be a note in that plan that you're signing suggesting it will come later. I think there's a workaround that we can certainly think about and manage.
I don't got that answer yet.
Yeah.
Understand the issue.
Just a couple of quick questions, follow up on your testimony. What's the total increase in impervious coverage on the tract? I don't know if you know that.
I don't know if the top of my head. I'll get it for you.
Okay. And could you give me the sewer calcs also for just the phase one final only? You said it was identical between office and
Yeah.
retail?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so you're gonna revise the lighting plan also to show all 15-foot high fixtures?
Yep.
All right, sidewalk, you're gonna approach Matt Cali about one or two different possible options.
Yes.
And I will try to get you that information at Johnson Road Pump Station, in terms of the pump information. And I'll give you a map of the entire borough that shows you what's coming to the pump station. I'll have to give you also the properties in Parsippany that come to this pump station. And then I will also try to give you whatever pump data I have.
Okay. Is there a flow meter on that pump station?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah.
Force main is an issue.
Yeah.
So if we can get flow data, that would
Right.
be a better indicator than taking,
Mhm.
however many homes times 300 and,
Right.
make a guess. But we'll figure it out.
Okay, so give some thought as to when you anticipate getting revised plans back.
When is the January meeting?
January 15th.
You'll have them in more than 10 days before.
Is there a couple homes from Hanover that go over there too?
Yes, there are two homes. There's that new Matt Cali development at 169 Johnson. There's the Octagon
Yeah, I
building.
know.
There's the Starbucks. There's the restaurant. There's Delta Dental.
There's 5 Parsippany homes.
Right.
We're very familiar with the Parsippany properties that come into that country. How many meetings do we have?
A lot. Very close.
No offense to attorneys, but there were too many attorneys in that room.
Never been an attorney.
Never heard that joke.
I just have one comment about that direct road. The reason it is circuitous right now was to prevent people from taking shortcuts from Johnson and 202 and vice versa. When you make that direct, you may make it nice for the people there, but you're gonna get increased traffic, especially with the development that's going on in Parsippany. They're just gonna avoid Route 10 and take it there. So you better think about it. That's all I can tell you. If you wanna do it, have it, if you can have it. I think
No,
it's a mistake.
Understood.
How long did you think that was going to take? That improvement in that building?
Improvement of which building?
Building A.
Building A,
Yes, I would, can I comment, building A, it depends upon if, once we get the final.
Excuse me, may I ask who's
We should
talking?
probably-
We have to-
James, this is, James Whitewood Jr.
We need him sworn in.
Thanks.
Please raise your right hand, state your name, spell your last.
James Bikert, WBICHERT.
You swear or affirm the testimony you'll give this evening before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. A large part of it depends upon our, the town's municipality's cooperation with the construction department giving us the permits to build the building, and then the demo phase and the move out. But hopefully within a year and a half, we would, from start to finish, we would like to be moved into 225.
thank you.
And would you immediately demo 1625?
It would also hopefully coincide with the approval from the NJDOT as well as that from the board for the final. And, may I add, there might be other aspects of along the site plan that, we currently have 3 access points without the Route 10 currently. And unfortunately, I've worked in the building for, I know Mr. Drosler, my father sends his regards, has lived in the town a lot longer than I worked in it at 1625, but for the time I've worked there, unfortunately, despite the best efforts of the town to have a circuitous route, it is a popular shortcut.
Right now.
Right now. And
Plus, if you ask me, if I was Mr. Waker, I wouldn't wanna spend that money for a temporary road. Just me.
I appreciate that, and
We may revisit that.
yeah, but all said, I will be the advocate of the board there, given the pothole situation extending across the site, which we've been, holding off on making any improvements, given our, proposed plans.
Well, that's what keeps people from going through there.
Yeah.
You have to go very slow.
Yeah.
The pothole.
Yeah.
Actually, you put in barriers lately to stop some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've reached the witching hour.
Yes, it's 10 o'clock, so this is a good point to stop. We'll look forward to your new plans and,
So we're carried till January 15th at 7:30
correct,
in this room.
in this room.
But may I make a suggestion? I think professionals, along with their professionals, should get together and crack a few heads and figure out what we're gonna do. Phase 1, phase 2, how we're gonna do it. Because we're not, talking about it here is not gonna decide it. You gotta come up with a plan and present it to the board, in my mind. Otherwise, we'll be talking about it forever.
I think that's a very practical solution to the suggestion.
That's it for tonight. Have a great holiday. Thank you very much.
You as well.
And, I think it was a good start.
Happy holidays, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Eric, I'm curious, what was the date that you submitted to the DOT? Just a month, 2 months ago, 4 months ago?
I wanna say we submitted in September.
Okay.
It took them 2 months, a month and a half to deem as complete. So-
I'm just curious, between that date and the date you actually get the permit, how many years it's going to be?
Thanks, man.
Don't ask me that in front of my client.
18 months is, I'm telling you right now, very, very, very optimistic.
You have to be optimistic.
I can be very persistent.
Otherwise, we wouldn't get up in the morning to see it.
We're trying to proceed, as quickly as we can, because this is gonna largely reduce the operating expenses for the company, so, that's what we can take forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But I don't have to say.
What's up next?
Just some, stuff.